Anti-tourism protests are breaking out in various regions of Spain, particularly the Balearic Islands, the Canary Islands, and Barcelona. They're protesting what they say is not tourism, but mass tourism, or over-tourism. But is that the real reason that the cost of living is going up in Spain, or anywhere else for that matter? My name is Howie. This is Positively Portugal. Let's get into it. So those are the three regions where these protests are concentrated: the Balearic Islands, Canary Islands, and Barcelona. However, one of these protests are not like the others. While emotions have run high in all of the protests, they've been peaceful in the Balearic Islands and the Canary Islands. However, in recent times, there was a protest in Barcelona where the protesters started squirting water guns, shooting water at tourists who were dining in local cafes. Being from New York City, the tourism capital of the world, really the everything capital of the world, I can tell you it's not tourism that's driving the costs up. Tourism is temporarily. And although new tourists replace the tourists who go home, tourism is still temporary. There are slow seasons and there are busy seasons. In New York, for example, the busy seasons are the summer and the holiday season, Christmas time. Everybody wants to see the big tree in Rockefeller Center. So tourism has been around for, hundreds of years. It's always been there with not just New York, but basically everywhere. It's not going anywhere. You think about what tourists do. They pretty much keep themselves to their designated areas, their designated tourist areas where the sites are, where the hotels may be, the bars, restaurants, cafes. They're not really going out into the residential neighborhoods and seeing how the actual residents live, where they go, what they do. So how exactly is that raising the cost of living? And when I say raising, yeah, look, I know it's raising it, but it's not the number one factor. And for anyone to think that is that's bonkers. People have always been visiting Barcelona or Mallorca or Tenerife, Las Palmas, for example. This isn't a new phenomenon. If anyone in Barcelona, where they were shooting the water guns, thinks that tourism, or whatever they want to call it, mass tourism, over-tourism, is what is the main factor in the cost of living going up, you're out of your minds. Like, you're just not with the rest of us. You know why the cost of living is going up? Especially in places like Spain. And I don't want to single out Spain. I actually love Spain. I have family from Spain. I've been to Spain 9 times in my life. And once I get to once I get to Portugal in a few months, I'll be making very frequent trips to Spain. The reason the cost of living is going up is because where your tax money is going to. The very same people who are protesting against temporary visitors are the same people who are protesting for open border immigration. Yeah, refugees welcome. Why don't you take a look at your refugees? How almost all of them are military-age men wearing expensive clothes and carrying iPhones. And those who aren't, for the most part, they're women who, when you look at them, and the men too. I'm not going to single out anyone here, and the goal here is not by any stretch of the imagination to body shame anyone. God knows I'm not a perfect person, not even close to that. But if you look at these people, none of them are starving. Almost none of them. I'm not denying that refugees exist. Oh, they do. Lots of them do. But what I'll tell you is 90% of the people who claim to be refugees aren't. Just want your welfare programs. So you're standing there yelling, screaming, hooting and hollering that you want open immigration with no controls. But the people who are paying for you to have that are who you're protesting against. And I'm not going to criticize anyone's opinions if they keep their protests peacefully. If they keep it peaceful. There hasn't been anything wrong going on in terms of the protests in the Balearics and the Canaries. But what happened in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago is disgusting. I don't care what you are protesting. I don't care who you are protesting. Squirting a water gun at someone who is just trying to enjoy their day, maybe enjoy a drink or enjoy a meal, squirting a water gun at them is an act of violence. It's the least aggressive act of violence. But how dare you ruin someone's day? How dare you ruin the day of someone who is pumping money into your local economy? You want to sit there and cry that you got priced out of your home. You're getting priced out of your neighborhood. Maybe you are, but tourism isn't the reason for it. And quite frankly, I don't give a damn if you're priced out of your home or your neighborhood or your city. If you think you have it harder than a native New Yorker, we have nothing to talk about. New Yorkers have been priced out of their homes, their neighborhoods, their city, their suburbs, their region. I left New York and went to North Carolina for 2 years. I didn't really like it there. So I went to Florida. I've been here for more than 8 years now. And I'm lucky. I love Florida. And I would never move back to New York. You couldn't pay me to move back to New York. But I'm not going to take away from the feelings of displaced New Yorkers who didn't want to leave. Yeah, and I was one of them. Now that I'm gone, I'm much happier. But there's a lot of them that didn't want to leave their home. But guess what? Tourists didn't do that to them. You know who priced New Yorkers out of their homes? New Yorkers did. They kept raising the price of rent, the cost of rent. They kept raising the cost of a drink at a bar. Did you know that it is now completely normal to go to New York City? And when I say New York City, I just mean Manhattan. But it is now completely normal to go to a bar and a single beer costs $10. And that's not what I'm complaining about. Cost is cost. What I'm complaining about is you have millions of idiots who reach into their wallets and pay that $10 per beer and a buck or two tip on top of it. Now, when I last lived in New York, it was kind of customary to give a dollar tip per drink. And now $10 beers, a dollar doesn't seem adequate anymore. So what you're looking at is a minimum of $11 just for a single beer. Can you imagine going to Portugal and getting an 11 euro Superbock? How about going to Spain and getting an 11 euro Mao? Those prices reached that level because people allowed it to. It kept paying. I'm going to bring up rent for an example here. In New York, it's almost impossible to get evicted. All of the laws are so far on the side of the tenant that really it seems the only way you can get evicted in New York is if you try setting the building on fire. So, how do you fight this? Easy. Don't pay the rent. Don't renew the lease. If New Yorkers did that, they wouldn't find themselves in the situations they're in now. Stop going to the bar. Don't go out and get a $25 burger and fries. I visit New York once or twice a year, and I look at these prices, and thankfully I still know where to go. But I'm not doing stupid things. Like, I'm not going to a bar in Manhattan anymore unless I absolutely must be there, unless I have something to do. I'm meeting someone who I haven't seen in a year or so. I keep my bars local to the Bronx, to Queens. I'm from the Bronx. I lived the majority of my adult life in Queens. So I'm not doing stupid things. But if you think for 1 second that the tourist from, I don't know, let's say, for example, Barcelona, who went to New York and spent a few nights in a hotel there and drinking $10, $11 beers in the bar, you think that's the reason the beers cost $10 or $11? Hey, I got some beachfront property in the Saharan desert to sell you. Tourists didn't ruin New York. New Yorkers ruined New York. They didn't know when to say no. And then when they started having the problems of illegal immigration and higher taxes, they're voting in these same politicians. Did you know that in New York, you could be an illegal immigrant? You could get a gift card of, I don't know what it is now, $1,000, $1,200. You get a free phone. You get everything free. And who's paying for that? You are. The residents, the New Yorkers are paying for that. That's the reason why things in New York cost so much. Because it's a welfare state. They keep giving things away. It's not tourists that ruined New York. New York has always been more expensive. Now it's just completely out of control. So if anyone in Barcelona is upset about being priced out, deal with it. Get a second job. I actually got priced out. And I'm not blaming tourists because they didn't do it to me. And everyone is entitled to have their opinion, as long as it's kept peaceful. I have no problems with people in the Balearics or Canaries protesting and wanting less tourism or stricter controls. Everyone is entitled to have their own opinion. What you are not entitled to have are acts of violence. You do not touch other people, whether that be with your hands, a weapon, or even a water gun. You do not touch anybody. And what exactly are these protesters thinking will happen? Do you think every single tourist who gets squirted by a water gun and told to go home is going to take it lightly? One of these protesters is going to get knocked on their ass. Think about how violent the British are when they start drinking. I have firsthand knowledge of that. I was in a bar in the Costa del Sol and a brawl broke out. Me? I was raised on the streets of the Bronx. I was taught if anybody touches you, you touch them back and you touch them much harder. I've been to Barcelona twice. It's a nice place. That's all it is. It's a nice place. You don't want me to be there? Okay. Well, if I'm looking for history, I'm in Europe. I can go just about anywhere else. If I'm looking for a beach, I can go all over the place. I can go down to Valencia. I can go down to Malaga. I can go to the Algarve in Portugal. If I'm looking for a city, hey, Barcelona, you don't want me there? I'll go to Madrid. It's a bigger city and it's a better city. So don't blow smoke up your own asses. You don't want tourists. They'll eventually get the message and they'll stop coming. They'll ruin your economy. Because in Barcelona, I don't see much else going on aside from tourism. I don't see much agriculture taking place in Spain's second biggest city. An industrial hub? I'm sure they're manufacturing something. What they're manufacturing, I don't know. But don't tug on Superman's cape, because he'll turn around eventually. And if I'm ever in Barcelona, you try squirting me with a water gun. That water gun might end up inside of you, and not necessarily through the front. Well, we're going to get back to more positive videos in the near future, but this is something that just needed to be addressed. And yes, it's a Spanish issue, but I think when something this concerning takes place in the country that's next to the one you're living in or the one you're about to move in, it's something that you should take notice of. It's something that you should talk about with others. Inform yourselves, educate yourselves. And quite frankly, that's not what the people of Barcelona did. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and if you want Portugal content, the process of moving to Portugal, Portuguese football, please leave a comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Subscribing is the #1 way that you can help support a YouTuber. So, until next time, once again, thank you all for watching, everyone. Have a good one.